Thrifters, welcome back to my channel. Today, we are going to upcycle an LL Bean dress that I found at a thrift store and also this straw hat that I've had for way too long and is falling a little bit apart. Okay, and first things first, we're going to finish this patch that I started 8 years ago, and we're going to attach it to this hat that needs a lot of love. As I mentioned, I started this patch 8 years ago, so that was actually my first go at needlepoint, so I guess technically this is still my first go at needlepoint. So now that the patch is finished, it is time to mend the hat to prep for the patch. And for those of you who have been following me for a while, you know I have an entire craft room filled to the brim with stuff, and I've been slowly cleaning it and found a huge box of needlepoint stuff. So I was like, let's start it up again, and I found all these wonderful colors that perfectly match this patch I started. I actually don't know much about weaving, and I think I might like to take that up, but for this project, I'm just going with the flow and seeing where it needs to be mended. And once I finished mending it and attaching the patch, I went ahead and blended everything in together and created a bunch of flowers and twig-like creations. Being my first project, it's definitely not perfect and I'll have to change some techniques, but she did come out pretty. Now onto this LL Bean dress that I found at a thrift store for $15 that is super cute, fits perfect, but is just too long and doesn't have enough pockets. And how we remedy that is remove 10 inches from the bottom, create a new hemline, and use the rest of it to create new pockets. Typically, I'm not a gal who uses pins often, but this fabric does have a stretch to it, and when it's put through the machine, it can shift a lot and just creates an uneven hem. So I'm just doing a nice double roll to make sure all the edges are underneath and it's nice and smooth and even. Okay, now that you're all hemmed, grab that extra fabric you cut off and it's time to make pockets. The size of the pockets depend on how much fabric you cut. Just remember you need to have at least a 1/2 inch seam allowance so that you can sew it all together and also that it'll fit on your dress. So I'm seeing after placing them down that I'm going to have to cut off 1 inch of the bottom just so that after stitching and all of the things, it'll fit really nice. And now that we are all pinned and ready to go, it's time to bring her over to the sewing machine. Again, this fabric is stretchy, so I have my length at 2 and on a zigzag stitch. Zigzag stitches are great for stretchy fabrics because it allows it to keep that stretch, and I don't have to have a stretch needle on. Also be sure to back tack at the beginning and the end of each stitch so that it won't unravel and it'll last a long time. Now onto the pockets. Keep the same stitch because it's the same fabric. Since I cut this fabric from the end of the dress, half of it is already finished, so I am only going ahead and finishing the edges that are not finished. Now that the pockets are ready, I'm placing them where I want them, and you definitely see that the pockets got smaller as you finish the raw edges. I put the bottom of the dress at the top of the pockets to create that texture, and now I'm pinning it in place because we do not want your pockets to shift as you are stitching. Keeping my zigzag stitch and securing the foot to the dress, I am going to sew on the pockets. Just be sure to leave the top open and to back tack at the tops so that you know you will not rip and that you can put your hand in it. And simple enough, the dress is actually finished. But of course, I had needlepoint on the hat and I want needlepoint on the dress. Also, embroidery thread is super sharp and I definitely sliced my finger. Okay, now for a little bit more planned needlepoint work. I have the flowers already done on the right hand side, and now I am working on the left hand side using a bunch of techniques that I have learned. Excuse me for not using all the correct terminology, but go ahead and watch what I'm doing so that you can see how I'm creating the different textures. Because I already have the one on the right hand side done, I'm being sure to cross-reference it so that they look as similar as possible. Obviously, I'm not a machine and I'm a human, so they're not going to be exactly the same, but I can make them as close as possible. Now that the pockets are done, move on to the arm sleeves. I'm just putting 2 simple flowers on each side. Little teaching moment, sometimes you get these little knobs where you are tying it and it's a little bulky. You can just stitch in the other color or the same color depending on what you're working on, and you can lay it flat so that it's not annoying on the skin. Again, cross-referencing the other side so they can look as similar as possible. And now that the hand stitching is finished, we remove the embroidery hoops and it is time to show you the finished product. I am so pleased with how this came out. In fact, I will not be selling it as it is a learning piece and I think it fits me perfectly. That truly is my favorite part about upcycling my own clothes, that it's custom and it's affordable. That being said, any of my followers that enjoy making their own clothes or would like to try, I do have an upcycling contest going on right now with a chance to win a really cool prize. So head on over to thriftedboutique.com or my Facebook and Instagram to stay in the loop. And as always, thanks for watching and be sure to hit subscribe if you like these thrifted lifestyle videos. See you later!